Hi, I'm Volmi from Sweet as Psychology. In this video, I'm going to tell you something about complex PTSD. You may have heard the term complex PTSD, or you may wonder whether you or someone close to you is suffering from it. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about what the words mean to begin with. I'll tell you a little bit about the symptoms, so what it looks like, and also I'll give you some examples. And then lastly, I'll tell you something about the treatment that there is. So if you are disturbed by some of the examples because you can relate to them, just keep in mind that there is treatment. So let's start with me just explaining the words. The best way to do this is to look at both PTSD and complex PTSD. So PTSD, it stands for post, which means after, traumatic, which means something bad has happened, something like a car accident or a fall or an injury of some sort. And then stress. You are now behaving after the event as if you are really stressed and really fearful, and you are indeed very fearful of death. Fearful of death or fearful of injury. And then disorder refers to the fact that this really has a big impact in your life. It impacts on how you sleep and how you work and how you relate to others. And then if we look at complex PTSD, complex means it has many different layers, this condition. And the layers are because it happens over an extended period of time or repeatedly. It happens to a child. So it means that when your nervous system is still completely different and don't have the skills to deal with the stuff that is happening to you. And then also that you don't have any resolve or repair of what has happened to you. That's the complex part. Then post, after. So it's after the stuff has happened, you develop the symptoms. Traumatic refers to the trauma, the traumatic event. And the developing child can only experience these events as being threatening. And then stress, you behave like someone who's really stressed and really fearful. And you are indeed very fearful of dying or of injury. And this is because when you are traumatized as a child, what you fear most is not being able to connect and staying connected to important others, to caregivers. Because as human beings, when we are little, we instinctively know if I cannot get and maintain connection with an important and competent caregiver, that is a threat to my life. That's life or death fear. Because we are social creatures and we cannot survive without competent adult caregivers when we are little. And then disorder, again, when you're an adult and you get the symptoms and it impacts so dramatically in your life that it affects how you work, how you feel about yourself, and how you relate to others in your life, like your partner, your colleagues, your children, and even strangers. That really has a big impact in your life. So we call it complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So let me tell you something about the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And I'm going to do this by telling you about the symptoms, but also then explaining it by using some examples. These are examples, but you can think about it and then see that it can apply to many different situations. So when it comes to PTSD, something happens that is traumatic. It's overwhelming, it happens too soon in a short period of time, and your nervous system doesn't know what to make of it. And you especially feel this is a threat, usually a life threat, a threat to your survival. So let's take the example of somebody being in a car accident. So this person drives along the road, there's a big slow truck, and she wants to pass this truck, and just as she's on the side of the truck, the lane immediately goes narrow again, and she can't pass the truck, and the truck hits her on the side. The car rolls, big accident, and she gets really bad injuries from this. So afterwards, there's a long recovery period, and in that period she may already start having nightmares that are about an accident or the specific accident, but she might even feel like it's really hard to start driving again, and or she starts driving and then she starts shaking so much that she has to pull over. But then it may even last for so long that even 10 years later, when she's driving up the road and there's a slow truck ahead of her, the moment she sees it, so there's a trigger, she gets the sensation of feeling hot all inside of her body, and her face is getting flushed and her hands are getting sweaty. So her whole body is reacting with physical sensations to the trigger that reminds her in some way of her life being threatened in that accident 10 years ago. And it can be so intense that she just decides, I can't do this. I can't go past that car. Even though she's multiple times now driven all over the show and has revived her confidence in driving, when this trigger happens, just like that, her brain is back. It's a reliving experience, and she feels, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to just stay behind this truck. That's the only way I can do this. So that would be an example of PTSD. There's a reliving experience, it's intense, there's a physiological reaction happening, she feels all that heat happening, or perhaps even her heart beating fast, and it has an impact on her behavior. It's as if the options of dealing with a situation is just very little. When we look at complex PTSD, there's a similarity, and there's some aspects that are different. So again, the trauma is over, the events are over. It's not happening anymore, but the adult now has experiences where sometimes this is triggered. So this person may be carrying on with life, having a good job, having a good relationship, and then one day his or her partner just mentions something, and the tone of voice or the facial expression just signals to this person, I'm unsafe. I'm going to lose my connection with this person. Or, I don't matter. My voice is not going to be heard. And it doesn't have to be that conscious. Perhaps you don't know at all what's going on. You feel the discomfort and you see how it affects your behavior. And it affects your behavior in the way that when you feel the discomfort, perhaps you get snappy, or perhaps you rush your work to finish your work and you want to go home. You just want to get out of the office. But so it impacts on your behavior, but you may not quite understand what is going on and how does this link. You can imagine that this can happen every day, and it can happen 100 times in the same situation if you don't understand what's going on and if you haven't had the treatment to get resolvement of this. So this can really influence us on so many levels, and it can influence us for your whole life. You can be someone in your 60s and still have these patterns when you are triggered in a way that reminds you of trauma that happened when you were a child. So again, somebody says something in a way that triggers you, and you go back to a bunch of memories that says, I don't matter, I'm not going to be heard, it's all my fault. A lot of stuff like that. And then immediately you feel a reaction. You can have a physiological reaction. You can have thoughts that say, I'm a failure, I don't matter. And your behavior is in such a way that you try to protect yourself. So you might even withdraw from a situation, or you might get snappy or aggressive, because your options of what you can do with that situation are very minimal, because this has become a pattern. I must just get out of this danger. It's dangerous. So that gives you an idea of how it can present in your life. If you think that you are stuck in behavior patterns that you don't understand, there's a good chance that you have complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Very often people who actually have complex post-traumatic stress disorder are diagnosed with a bunch of diagnoses that are treated with medication and that are often not resolved, until we actually go and look at and we see that it actually comes from childhood trauma. So keep that in mind as well. If you have been diagnosed with examples are bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, all kinds of personality disorders, there is a chance that if you understand what happened to you from this perspective, from the perspective of complex PTSD and the effect that childhood trauma has on your childhood, that maybe if you deal with it in a different way, you can actually have resolvement and some improvement of some of your symptoms. So you will see that happening when you start, where you've had the treatment and you start doing things differently. You can now actually, it's like, now all of a sudden you can listen to your partner when your partner says, hey, I don't like that you do this. You can say, oh, okay, I get that. I can help you with that. Or I can do this differently. I can do it. Or when you start saying, hey, I have some other needs. Can I negotiate to have my needs met too? And you look back and you think, oh, I did that differently. This time I asked for my needs to be met. And I feel good about it. So when you start behaving differently, you feel my brain has been rewired. My memories about what happened to me when I was a child has been rewired, and I'm doing this differently. So that's what we need to do in treatment. So let me tell you more about how we can treat post-traumatic stress disorder. And it will give you an idea about how we do this, but also it will give you hope, because there's a lot we can do. The aim of the treatment is that we need to, in some way, help you to rewire, not delete, but rewire what your brain was thinking about yourself and about your safety when the trauma happened. So it looks like when you are traumatized, when you are in the car accident, or when you are traumatized as a child by thinking, I don't matter, it looks like our brains get stuck there. And there's a part of you that almost doesn't believe that you survived. And we need to go back there to understand why that is the case, why you're not so sure that you survived, and we need to work with that. But that's good news, right? Because we can do that with different kinds of therapies. So in the case of PTSD, and in the example that I used before, it would be like revisiting some aspects of the accident with the car and the truck. And what helps is we don't need the detail. We don't need to go into that memory and remember every minute of that memory of what happened. We just need to access some aspects of that. So we can even use the physiological reaction, or we can use the recent trigger. We can say, oh, so let's work with the other day, last week, when you were driving on the road again and you saw that truck and you realized, oh, it's that thing happening again. Let's work with that. And we can work with that because that's part of the memory. That's how our brains store that memory. Then we work with that, and we can help you in the first place acknowledge that yes, this was really scary. It was really a big threat to your life. Then we can also help the person get aware of what they did right, what they did to prevent additional injury. So things went wrong. Yeah, it was a curveball, what happened. But hey, you did reduce the speed. That probably made things better. You did cry out for help as soon as you woke up. You did persevere and try so hard when you were in the rehabilitation phase and you got better from that injury. And then we need to remind the person, the nervous system, hey, look around you now. Just notice your legs are moving, you're breathing, you are in a safe space. Look how well you have recovered. You are actually going for long walks. You can climb stairs. Look how strong you are. And look how safe a driver you have become. You can make better decisions, better judgments of what's going on. You've got this. That's what the therapy aims to do. There's a lot of relief. Even now when I tell you about it, I can sort of relive that sense of relief when you work with clients and you see the relief that comes with that. In the case of complex PTSD, it's similar, and there's similar stuff that we can do that is as helpful, but there are some differences. So some of the big differences are that we do need to revisit some younger parts of yourself. That may sound complicated, but it's actually not so complicated because we all have younger parts of ourselves. A playful part, or a part that is scared easily, or a part that wants a connection with another to be in a certain way, to feel reassured and to feel really safe with that person. So we actually deal with our younger selves on a daily basis. So in the therapy, we, in a safe way and in a way that's really tolerable for each individual, we revisit some areas of younger parts. And we go and help that younger part to see what was actually going on. So now we have adult minds. We have adult nervous systems. So our perspective is different. So we can help you to then revisit younger parts with a different perspective and with your own adult brain that can see, hey, I was actually just a good kid. I actually just wanted to play or explore, and I did matter, and it was valid that I wanted a playmate or that I needed reassurance in that situation, or that I needed to be heard and seen. And hey, I don't know what my caregivers were busy doing, but they were probably just busy doing other stuff that was also really important. It wasn't that I wasn't good or good enough or not deserving of their attention. I deserve attention. I deserved it then. So it's those kind of concepts that we go and visit, and we try and strengthen those concepts and those perceptions that the child was perhaps confused with. So it's like revisiting some misperceptions, misconceptions that the child had about themselves and about the situation. And again, when that happens, there's often a huge relief, a sense of, okay, so I am actually capable of maintaining connectedness. I am actually deserving of a connected and loving relationship. And I have options of ways of making my partner know that this is what I need. Now I have the confidence to ask, and I can look after myself by asking. So it also makes you aware then that you can now, as an adult, do different things. You have different options. It's like saying, look, you are now a competent driver, more competent driver. You can now also experience, oh, I am now more competent in a relationship because I can ask for my needs to be met. Because I can say, can we negotiate about this? So it's really it's a process that, yes, it's quite intense and it's challenging, but it's so rewarding. It's such a rewarding process because you see how it changes your behavior. I think I've explained to you more about complex PTSD in a way that I hope that there are some pieces of information that's really valuable to you. If you want to read up more, a very helpful website is that of Pete Walker. He has a lot of easy to read articles, so you can have a good look there, and his books really explain these concepts very well. And then, of course, if you have more questions for me, you are welcome to make contact and ask. Thanks for watching my video.